back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and a couple of days ago I did my kind of introduction, call it a hot take, on the Bell & Ross BR05, one of the most controversial watch releases of the last couple of months. I say one of because I think even more controversial is the new Oris Big Crown ProPilot X. And I think it's more controversial not because of anything to do with the watch, but really it's more about the brand Oris. Oris is a much loved brand. It is one that many watch, perhaps even most watch enthusiasts, hold close to their hearts. Now, a lot of the angst around this watch is actually starting with the price, and I'm not for an instant saying that the price, which by the way is on the bracelet $7,600 US, I'm not saying that that is wrong. I'm not saying it's too much, but what I am saying is that a lot of the comments that come about this watch are driven by the fact that it's a $7,500 US watch. I think if this watch cost $5,000 US, a lot of these comments and the commentary would go away. So everything I think before we move on to anything else, we really need to attack that price and see why is that price such a big deal. Now, the first thing about the price is what I would call the Swimline Problem. I haven't found another collecting community anywhere in any other field that I've been involved in, whether it's cars or photography stuff, where the people in that hobby are so determined to make sure that brands stay in their swim lane, that if a brand offers something that they haven't offered before, that the enthusiasts weren't inspecting, if it cost a lot more or a lot less than that brand usually does, we all have a bit of a tremor. And it gets particularly bad when brands go outside of their normal swim lane. We as a community seem to be fairly sensitive to brands getting uppity about who do they think they are. And I think I've heard YouTubers actually say words to that effect. Who do you think you are to try and charge this kind of money? And you get that effect a lot. And you sense that coming through with the Oris. Who do you think you are to be charging $7,500 for a watch? So when we're addressing this question of who does Oris think they are to be charging $7,500 US for a watch, well, we're Oris, and our most expensive watch now is already $6,000, so it's not like it's that big a deal. And they're right. Right now, and in fact for some years, Oris have had in their Atelier line watches fitted with a predecessor movement to this, the caliber 113 and 114. And right now, go onto the Oris websites, and those watches will cost you $6,000 US, $8,500 Australian. This is not that big a stretch from where Oris have been in the past. It is not a massive departure from their swim lane. And the other thing is too, people seem to think, I think because Oris is a brand loved by people coming into the watch community, it's loved by entry-level watch people, there's this thought that Oris is an entry-level brand, which it is clearly not. If you look at its routine prices for plain old everyday, it's normal run-of-the-mill stuff, like an Oris 65 diver, it does not line up with other entry-level brands. It lines up with, almost to the dollar, Longines. So in fact, in some cases, if you look at the Hydra Conquest, it's actually significantly more expensive. It's like 50% more expensive than the Longines Hydra Conquest, like the Heritage Diver, which is the most expensive brand that the most expensive diver that Longines offers. So Oris as a brand positions itself at least at Longines level, probably a third to a half a brand segment above. So the idea that they've got a $7,500 watch, which is their absolute flagship, that is around about or just a little bit more than standard Omega prices, which is that one just above Longines, makes perfect sense. This is well within the Oris swim lane. This is absolutely where it should be. not for their garden variety watches, but if you're going to have a flagship, this is exactly where it would be. And make no mistake, this is a flagship, and I'm not making that up. I'm just repeating what the CEO of Oris actually said in an interview. I mean, his quote was, after these developments, so these developments of the watch, we felt ready to produce and release a high concept piece that would show the world on another level who Oris really is. And that's exactly what they've done. They've moved up a level, so they've moved from that kind of just at the bottom of Omega kind of pricing level, gone just a little bit further up and saying, at our very best, at our absolute peak, our best watches are probably better than a Seamaster. That's probably a fair statement to make. It's not that much of a stretch from their swim lane, if a stretch at all. So if you don't understand how Oris can charge what they're charging for this watch, it probably says more that you haven't been paying attention to Oris and you don't understand who Oris really is than anything about Oris branding or Oris pricing. Another topic which has come up, and Archie's absolutely hammered on this, is about the capability provided by a $7,500 watch. There's this smashing of the brand for the fact, and I can't remember off the top of my head. If I can find it, I'll just put it on the screen. I can't remember what the accuracy they're promising, but it's below chronometer grade. And then there's been this argument that says, why, if you're charging $7,500, I don't care about the power reserve, that's garbage. Give me a chronometer standard. Give me 50 hours of power reserve, not the whatever it is. What is it? It's 8 days, so it's like 170 or something. Don't give me all that. Give me less power reserve, but make it more accurate. Where is it written that the luxury capability is accuracy, not power reserve? I don't think that's true, and I think we're running into here the first of another problems with the pricing. There's a number of people, Archie's one, but there's a whole bunch of others who have a very clear and exclusive set of criteria that would constitute luxury. So accuracy equals luxury, power reserve does not. And frankly, that's just bull. That's just one person's choice trying to make their personal opinion or their personal preferences the preference for people in that segment. You know what? Oris doesn't agree with you. Oris decided that power reserve was a more luxurious feature than ultimate accuracy, and if you don't like their choice, that's fine. Don't buy the watch, but don't besmirch the brand. Don't besmirch the watch as not being a luxury watch, not deserving of its price, purely because when it came to making a decision about how to differentiate the watch from the rest of the crowd, they chose something different to you. And that decision about where the money gets spent, what constitutes a sufficient amount of luxury, really comes through in this discussion, finishing and engineering as well. And again, I'll use Archie because I think he represents kind of an archetype of a critic of this watch. Archie was absolutely critical over the choice made not to concentrate on high finish, high decoration of this watch. Now, let it be said, Oris have not, and he just automatically put this down as lazy. It was lazy to make the decision not to go for a high finish. In doing so, he has ignored the fact, or if he hasn't ignored it, he has devalued the fact that Oris has spent money on the visuals. They have spent money on the decoration, the look of this watch. They just didn't do it in the finishing. They did it in the engineering. Now, this watch is no sort of Gerard Perregaux Bridges style, specially designed to be skeletonized movement. It doesn't look as good as those. But then on the other hand, it costs somewhere between 1/10 and 1/3 of a top of the line Gerard Perregaux Bridges movement. Those things are just stunningly gorgeous. But you can see that Oris have clearly invested quite a bit of money in re-engineering this movement such that when it is skeletonized, it looks better. It's been shifted around in order to present better with the skin taken off. That costs money. Now they've chosen to spend that money and then keep the essential look, the kind of raw industrial look of the movement. That is a choice. It's not a choice you may agree with. Maybe like Archie, you would have preferred them to just take the standard movement, rip out some stuff, but then clean up what they already have, what is left over. That's fine. That's a perfectly acceptable reason for you to not like this particular watch, but I don't think that's a legitimate reason to say that the watch isn't worth the money because money was spent in a place you didn't want it to be. Now let's move to the next thing. So that's sort of price dealt with. So let's put that to one side and now talk about the design, because the design itself is also controversial. Off the bat, the whole concept of a skeletonized pilot's watch makes no sense. It really shouldn't be done. There is no way of creating a skeletonized watch which would have the same kinds of legibility demanded of a watch used by pilots. Therefore, there's a lot of people who are just angry about the idea that this watch was called a pilot, a ProPilot, and was then skeletonized. And actually, some of that has also blown onto the Bell & Ross, but we'll stick with this watch right now. I think that criticism is probably valid only insofar as you maintain a really narrow definition of what a pilot's watch is. And what I mean by that is a pilot's watch always a watch that a pilot would use when flying? Or, and I think this is what Oris is really heading towards, could you say a pilot's watch is a watch that a pilot would want to wear because it represents who they are and where they think they want, how they want to present themselves and how they think about themselves, even when they're not flying? So if you think of this not as a pilot's watch for use, but a watch that a pilot would want to wear, then I think it starts to make more sense. A lot of people, Oris, have spoken about, beveling choices and the choice of the bezel finish looking like a jet turbine. And there's been a lot of like poo-pooing of whatever. I suppose as someone who works within the aviation industry, the first thing I would say is, actually, they're right. It does look a lot like the high-pressure turbine blade, a high-pressure turbine disc, and those sort of grooves do mirror the grooves in the disc where the blades would slot into. And so as soon as I saw it, I thought, I know what that is. And the second thing is, we people in the aviation community routinely surround ourselves with bits and pieces of aeroplanes to remind ourselves of what we do. They're in our presentos to ourselves, they're in our little memorials and memorabilia, and engine components are routinely used for that. I've probably got any number of things around this in my study made from that sort of stuff. I'll see if I can find a picture and put something up of something that's made that way. So whilst a lot of YouTubers are sort of going, oh, well, that's kind of just marketing fluff and no one's going to care, actually for people in the industry, we do kind of like that stuff. So I can kind of see where they're going, and it does make sense to me. So having defended the price of this and having defended some of the overall decisions about the design, I really should be pretty clear and say I'm adamantly undecided on this watch. I really don't know how I feel about it. The design isn't, from looking at the pictures, the design and the look is not grabbing me and saying, this is definitely a watch I want to save for and buy. I'm really unsure. What I can say with some conviction is the pricing of this is near enough to right. I don't think that the design is outrageous and completely inappropriate, and that they've, been inauthentic in calling this a pilot's watch. I'm personally not 100% sold on the styling as just from a purely aesthetic point of view. Not sure if I'd slap my money down on it, but it's not a watch that deserves, or really it's not a watch that deserves the controversy that seems to surround it. So let's just go back a step and say, what was Oris trying to do here? Oris was trying to say, hey, look at us. Look at what we can do. This is how far we can get. I think this watch does all of that really quite well. The taste might not be for you, but no watch is designed to be for everyone. Judging by how well Oris seemed to have hit the mark they were aiming for, all I've got to say is good job, Oris. Well done. I look forward to perhaps seeing one in the flesh and in a perfect world getting to borrow one for a while and doing a proper report. But that's really where I am right now. Interested in your thoughts. Stick them below in the comments. If you hang on for a little while, a card's going to come up and it's going to have my Instagram handle and an email address. If I don't do wristwatch checks, so if you're interested in what watch I'm wearing today or what watches I own, go check out my Instagram. Follow me there. Please subscribe to this channel. We're slowly but surely growing, and I'll see you later. Bye.